Hey, what's up, everybody? Thanks for listening. Welcome back to another episode of the Business Owners Freedom Formula Show, where we chat with inspiring entrepreneurs and dig into their highs, lows, and everything in between of their business building journey and learn about how they've been able to achieve ultimate freedom. In today's episode number 1, numero uno, we have our first ever guest with us here today. But before we get started, just a quick reminder that you can get all of the show notes by going to our website, paulmaskill.com. Or if you're on your iPhone, you can simply click on the podcast logo and the show notes will pop right up for you. And if you're looking to mastermind with other like-minded business owners that are listening to the show, jump into our free Facebook group at bizfreedomformula.com. And did I mention all of our podcasts are recorded live, including video with no edits, so you can check those out on Facebook and YouTube as well. So we are going to jump right in to our first ever guest. Ironically, she was the first ever guest on my previous podcast as well. So this is the lady behind the scenes at interviewsthatconvert.com and the host of the fantastic new podcast, Get Guest Ready. Nicole Holland helps small business owners and subject matter experts increase their visibility exponentially through podcast guesting so they can make a greater impact, influence, and income. Proud to have been named in the Huffington Post as one of the 50 must-follow women entrepreneurs in 2017, alongside female powerhouses such as Marie Forleo, Danielle Laporte, Amy Porterfield, and Dory Clark. Nicole continues to inspire entrepreneurs all around the globe through her popular podcast, the Business Building Rockstars Show. So that is Nicole Holland from Interviews That Convert. Welcome, Nicole. How's it going?
It's great. Thanks for having me, Paul.
Thank you so much for being here with that fantastic introduction. Have I missed anything?
No, but I have to say I'm a little bit nervous now because it's like, oh, live, no edits. Ooh, as a podcaster, you get kind of comfortable. Me, because I do edit. It's like you get comfortable knowing it's like, well, if there's a big mistake, we'll cut it out. Now I'm like, okay, I'll be on my A game.
And this is what you thrive at, being a podcast guest. So there should be no worries there. So what are you up to these days building your new business here, Interviews That Convert?
Well, it's funny that you asked that because right now today, just before we hopped on, I've got a new VIP client and excuse me, you're such a systems person, so you'll appreciate that every time I do something new, I tweak my system a little bit and I get it a little bit more dialed in because I'll do something and I don't want to go back and redo it unless it's important to redo it, but I'll keep that in mind where I'm like, ooh, I think next time I'm going to add this and next time this isn't so important and maybe I can, put these things together. So I was just tweaking my system just before we hopped on for my VIP client onboarding.
Beautiful. And I think that the key takeaway there is really just to get started with any sort of system, any sort of process. You can always improve it later on, but at first you just got to get started and get that first step out the door. So very cool. So if you can give our listeners, they're probably at a stage where they're trying to get over the hump. They might be stuck. How did you actually get started with your whole entrepreneurial journey anyway?
I just did it. I had a job that I really, really, really didn't like. It was in government. I was a law enforcement officer. I did corrections. So I worked inside of a detention center and I was really, really unhappy. And I made the decision to quit and I didn't know what I was going to do next. I had no plan. I had no nothing. I jumped. And so as I jumped, I realized that I had to do something. and so I just started diving in and asking, what can I do? What can I do? What should I do? What should I do? And trying to look at the skills that I had accumulated over my life and things that I enjoyed doing. And that was one thing I really wanted to be happy. That was something that was not in my life for a long time. I was so miserable. And so I knew whatever I was doing, I wanted to be happy. And previously I had done coaching with families and youth and children. And while I love it, it's a lot. It takes a lot out of you. And I was like, I don't want to do that right now. I want to work with happy people who are already, doing what they want to do. And it's not constant conflict. And so I went back to my roots of marketing and blended that with coaching. And that was the idea to get started and get me over that first hump of getting started.
Very cool. So as you started to build that business, obviously it sounds like other business have come along as well. What were some of the big obstacles when you were building your first business or the next business or whatever business? What were some obstacles that you faced, and what was the best way to overcome those?
Well, I still say it's just one business because what I recognized was that I needed to build a business around me. I am my business. And so I needed it to be fluid, and I needed it to be, I wanted, and I wanted to be seen as an influencer or a thought leader, even though those buzzwords really bugged me at first. They don't bug me so much anymore because I'm used to them, because I know that's what people are calling it. But basically an authority platform. I want to be able to share and give value in whatever way I feel like it at the time, whatever way is appropriate, without having to say, I do this or I do that. And I know as well from a sales and marketing standpoint, you have to be able to articulate, I do this. And so what I came to realize was that I didn't have to build a business to do a thing and then move on to something else. I could build a platform and get known as somebody of value and a resource and make money that way. So I like to say my business is me. I am my business. And the biggest thing for me has been just flow and just really allowing and paying attention to what's coming up. I tried at the beginning to fit into other people's models, and it wasn't working. It was really difficult. I wasn't making money, but I was paying a lot of money for a lot of advice. And it wasn't advice that felt good. It was, well, you're not making money because you're doing this wrong. You're doing this wrong. And it's like, but doing it right just felt so wrong for me. And so I had to eventually say no more. And I just shut it down and decided probably about 4 or 5 months into my journey, I was just like, no. I was working with people. Yes, I was making a little bit of money, but it was not money I wanted, because the people were exhausting me, and they were expecting things from me that it wasn't a good fit. And so I stopped working with the people I was working with. And I stopped working with people that I had hired because that wasn't a good fit. And I just really went within, and I was like, what can I do? What do I want to do? What do I need to do? And what came to me was I needed to be the person who I was searching for when I quit my job. I needed to be somebody who could provide resources and value to people who are searching, without saying, oh, well, if you pay me, then I'll do this, or if you pay me, I'll do that. Because I think there's plenty of people out there doing that. and I couldn't find anyone who I really could trust to just point me in the right direction without any financial gain for themselves. And so that's what I wanted to be. So I created what I called the Business Building Rockstars Summit, where I interviewed different marketing experts on different platforms. And that got me over that little hump, and got me in the right direction. And when I was on your show last time, I think we may have did we talk about lead magnets?
A little bit, but if you want to give our listeners a little bit insight into that, because I think a lot of people could really get a lot of value out. What is a lead magnet and how can they utilize it?
Yeah, so I'm just going to skim over it for the purpose of the story. That once I was I started learning marketing funnels for online, and I started putting together things that were free content, but I got an email address out of it. So for example, the summit was basically a lead magnet. It's a lead generation where you create content and it's seen as valuable to somebody else enough that they give you their email address. And then from there, there's the possibility to upgrade and buy it, at least for the summit. And a lead magnet can lead into any other kind of sales or next step with a potential client or customer. But what I found was, because I have a strategic mind anyways, and because I do have a background in marketing and I am a coach, I have been coaching for a long time, even though I was working in a job that wasn't that. I have those skills. And so creating lead magnets came really natural to me. I made a program around that. I got some clients around that. And then I was seeing people couldn't get through it. Like, here I'm walking them through this program. It's super, super simple to create this content that they're an expert for and build a funnel, like the start of a funnel.
Mm-hmm.
And people wouldn't get it done. So then I was like, all right, we need to master your mindset. Maybe that's where I was when I was on your show.
Probably about right.
So then I created a course, basically a book study, if you will, it's called the Master Your Mindset Challenge, which was a walkthrough. It was a book study of Napoleon Hill's Think and Grow Rich. And I gave that away for free. And so that was another lead magnet to get people in. And I just kept trying things. I was listening to my audience. I was looking around. I was paying attention to what people who liked me and listened to me and resonated with me, what they needed and what they wanted. And then I would find a way to solve that problem. When I became a podcaster myself, what I was finding was that other podcasters were looking to me for my systems and for how I was able to do 10 interviews in a day. Trust me, I did not want to do 10 interviews a day, but I had a timeline that I had to get stuff done. And so looking at that timeline and saying, here's what I want to accomplish at the end, here's where I'm at right now, I can plug things in and put systems into place. So a lot of people wanted me to help them with that. People had a lot of questions about podcasting. But through all of it, I was still staying with, okay, I'm just going to focus on building my platform. I'm going to build myself up as a valuable resource who can point people in the right direction, who can connect people. I've done a lot of affiliate promotions because I don't believe I need to create a program that already exists if it's good. So I introduce people to other people's programs, stuff like that. Well, then I really started paying attention while I was podcasting to my guests and to which guests I thought were really awesome and which guests I thought were not really awesome and what those people were doing differently. And so then I started testing out like, oh, I'm going to try this. Oh, I'm going to try that. And I started finding what worked and what actually converted listeners into leads and what converted hosts into friends and partners. And so I started teaching about it and I started writing a book about it. And then I created the book is not done. It was a start, it was a starting point. But I was encouraged to create a beta program to test the concept and see if people actually wanted to pay for this information. And so I did, and they did. But what I found was that at the end of the day, they're looking for the connection. And so just recently, I decided to basically take what I teach in my course or what I would have taught in this course as it was getting revamped. And instead of doing it through a paid program, I'm doing it for free through this new podcast that you mentioned, Get Guest Ready, and also doing a free course through that. So I'm not sure if I answered your question, but my business has evolved, and it's just my one business. It's just me. I'm evolving as I'm seeing a need and as I get excited about things that are fun for me to do and that people are begging me for.
Awesome. No, I think that's great for our listeners. And I think the key there is you're building a business and everybody else should be building a business around what their end goal is and what do they want. And obviously you want the freedom to do whatever you want, wherever you want. And when you can build those businesses, you do have that leverage and your business starts to work for you. So, and another thing that we always talk about is really the only thing you own in a service-based business is that customer list. So being able to provide consistent free value to then get them on your email list, then you finally have the potential to then sell them something. They're not going to buy from you until you prove that you're worth it, because there's so much competition out there. No matter what local business you own, no matter what you're doing out there, you're not going to be able to compete on price. You're not going to be able to compete on the service as much as you are the value, the consistent education, the proactiveness that you give that nobody else can do. And I think what you've done there, I mean, to offer that for free is phenomenal. So for any listener out there who is thinking about podcast guesting, or they don't even know that there's an avenue to get on podcasts, what is the steps to do that, and why is that kind of the most effective way for them to grow their brand, whether they're a very small local business or they're looking to expand?
So I think that there's the potential for anybody to use podcast guesting as a way to grow their brand and get their message out. However, it's not a right fit for everybody. I think you have to have First of all, you have to be comfortable talking to other people, right? You have to enjoy it. If you don't, it's just going to fall flat. Podcasting is a very intimate medium. We're sitting here talking, and people can see us if they're watching the video, or if they're tuning in on iTunes, they can hear us, and they're probably wearing earbuds like me or a headset like you. Maybe they're working on the computer on something else, and we're just kind of in the background. Maybe they're out running errands and they're listening in their car as they're driving. Maybe they're jogging, cooking, whatever. The thing is that they are listening. And I think there's the fact that it really is like touching their ears. We're coming in a way that other mediums don't. And because of that, you have to have the right personality to be a good podcast guest. You have to have a true desire to share your value without going in with an agenda to sell your stuff. It's something that a lot of people don't agree with. I mean, I have a very unique perspective, and mine's only one of however many millions of perspectives. But I don't actually think if you're going in to a podcast guesting situation because you want to sell your stuff, I don't think it's going to be effective. It's going to be a numbers game like any other sales strategy. But if you go into podcast guesting to build relationships, that's a whole nother situation. And that's where I come in, and that's where I support people. So you want to know what your value is. You want to know what you can bring to a potential podcast host and to their listeners. You want to find podcasts that speak to listeners who are your ideal customers and clients. You have to really know who your customer and client is. You need to know what their desires are. You need to know what their wants, their needs, their loves, their passions are. Once you do, you can then find a podcast that speaks directly to them. The next thing you need to look at is, who's the host? Do you like the host? Would you have a beer with the host? Would you spend time with the host? If the answer is yes, that's a pretty good prospect at this point, because going onto a podcast is like going into somebody's home. It's not like getting on a stage. And that's what a lot of people come at podcast guesting from. It's like, well, I've spoken on stages all over the world. Yep. People can't get enough of me. You know, I've been on TV. I've been on radio. I'm so fabulous. Great. But now you're going into somebody else's home. And if you can't take that ego down a notch and take off your shoes when you walk in the door, if their house requires you to take off shoes, and sit down at the table and listen to Uncle Ned's story like you actually care, then you're going to have a problem. You're not going to be able to connect and resonate with the host. And if you're not connecting and resonating with the host, you're not connecting and resonating with the audience.
Well said. Couldn't have said it better myself. And I think, I've been in podcasting for a couple years, and really, like you said, the most successful podcasters that you talk with, they are so open to just having conversations and building that relationship. It doesn't matter who has the most popular podcast or who's a new podcaster. They're very approachable. And the key there is you're building that relationship and building that value for a long-term brand and a long-term culture. It's not you're going to get on a podcast and people are going to spend $100,000 with you, but it's just going to be another medium and another way to prove that you are an expert in your field and to get the word out. Like you said, it's very intimate. They're letting, whoever's listening to this right now, you're letting us into your life no matter what you're doing. And you really need to understand that you're not jumping on a podcast to listen to get sold something. I do this because I love it. I love talking to other people. Clearly, that's one of your passions as well. And just having those conversations, you could do 10 interviews in a day. And like you said, you didn't want to do them when you started, but once you get into it, you're like, this is a lot of fun. Thank you for, letting me into your home.
No, I wanted to do the podcast, but 10 a day was a little much.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm comfortable with 2 to 6.
There you go. And that's like anything. So
yeah,
really, that's a really good insight.
And the thing is, Paul, I have no misconception that the people who are listening to me right now are only listening to me right now because they listen to you. And because we have good chemistry, it is very easy to go, no, next. Just because somebody has a podcast with a great audience doesn't mean that getting on that podcast as a guest means you're going to be listened to. And this has been a lot of fun for me to look at the analytics, and you're kind of like me in that way. So I imagine you probably look at Libsyn too. And when a person comes on a show, it's like you're the guest. You're not the focus, even though you might be a really big fish in your ocean. When you're going onto a show, you're stepping into, as I said before, somebody else's house, or we could even say a little pond, right? And the people who are there because of the host. The host brings the people to the party. The host cultivates and nurtures those relationships. So, Paul, your audience is listening because they love you. They love your energy or your special sauce. And so you could have anybody in this hot seat here, and it wouldn't matter, because the people listening are still listening because they love you. And I think that's something that a lot of people don't recognize when they're looking to be guests. They're really looking at their accolades, their accomplishments, everything about them, rather than saying, a little more humbly, I'm going to find somebody who I really want to hang out with. I really will enjoy being with, because I think that if I feel that way about them, they'll likely feel that way about me. And if they feel that way about me, their audience will probably tune in to listen.
Excellent. So now that you're kind of getting up and running with this and helping other people for free, which is fantastic. What is a normal? And
for money.
And for money, yeah. So don't forget that as well. Obviously, you need to pay the bills and do everything, but the whole concept of even a lead magnet, I think a lot of people need to take that away. If one thing from this conversation, people aren't going to buy from you until they know, like, and trust you, and you need to prove your worth. There's more competition than ever. People have more access than ever because of the internet, because of social media. So really understand that when you're wondering, I wish I could get more clients. Well, they're not just going to come to you and give you money before you give them a reason to. So that's really, I think if you take one thing away from this interview, that's really what it should be. So go ahead.
Sorry, I'm going to cut you off again just because I want to interject there, because you're completely right? I mean, I looked at what John Lee Dumas did and I was like, that's brilliant, because here I am, newer in the industry, definitely new, saying, here, I'm going to take a stand for interview guesting, podcast guesting. How do I make myself stand out because people are like, how do you compare to these other people? And that's the question I kept getting. Well, why should I hire you opposed to them? You're new, they are not. Like, you shouldn't, because if I have to describe to you the difference, then you shouldn't. But then it's like, well, these people, there's nothing wrong with them. Like, it's not that they should know. Why should they know? Because they don't know me. So I thought, okay, well, I love what John did, and I copied his model. So my podcast, the Business Building Rockstars Show, that's my podcast. It's not a lead magnet, it's just a podcast. The Get Guest Ready is absolutely a lead magnet, because there I have the opportunity to spew more of my opinions about podcast guesting. I walk people through step by step how to do it from, in my opinion, beginning to end, although the end isn't there yet because I still have episodes to finish writing and recording. So I'm sharing my style, my message, my value, and I'm giving value to the audience because they're learning how to do things that maybe they didn't know before. Even people who've been guests on lots of shows, lots of times, tell me all the time, oh my gosh, I learned so much from this. Podcasters who've been doing it for a while, oh my gosh, I didn't even think of that. I'm going to add this piece to my system because of what you said. Great. So now people are either going to love me or hate me on the podcast, or maybe they're going to think, I don't really like her, but I'm listening because there's value there. Cool. The people who hate me are going to tune out. They're not even going to listen. The people who think I'm not a fan, but I'm getting value, they're going to listen to the podcast. They're going to get value. The people who love me, they're going to then sign up for my free program that goes with the podcast. It's called Get Guest Ready School. It's a 3-week e-course where I send Monday through Friday for 3 weeks. You get a course, you get exercises to do, you get my templates, you get my everything that I would have sold for $2,000 in my program that I decided not to sell, I am giving away. Again, not completely done yet because I still have, at the time of recording, some episodes or some lessons still need writing. But at the end of the day, once this is all done, that is my lead magnet. So podcast to you give me your email address and you get for free my program. That way, I can really get to know the people who are listening to me, resonating with me. Now I can give them transformation. I can give them an experience with me to where they're going to walk away paying $0, but feeling like they have things dialed in. Then the next logical step would be, if they want to continue receiving support from me, to hire me. And so I have different levels that I work with people. There's the minimal level, which is right now $49 a month. It's a membership level, gives people access to me for coaching and all kinds of support. That's an easy yes. If people get through my program and they're like, this was really good, and they have any questions, membership level, easy yes. Or if they're listening to my stuff and they're like, I like what she says, I like her style, I get it, but I need some more support in terms of I want to get connected to podcasters. Then there's a middle tier. Or maybe people just hear about me or they start listening to me and they're like, wow, this girl's got it dialed in. I want her to take care of me. Then there's my VIP level. So I think that's just because you mentioned about the lead magnet, I wanted to really talk about that funnel piece where it's like free with an email, and then paid.
Awesome. So that is huge. So no matter what type of business you're running, even if it's a local service-based business, you can use the exact same idea. Provide that value. People know, like, and trust you. And if there's people that don't like you, it's better to find out before they start paying you, because then they're going to be a headache anyway, and they can go to your competitor. And like you said, there's enough people in this world for you to service just as many as you want and your competitors. And you're going to resonate with the people that want to work with you, and the people that don't resonate with you, that's totally fine. So you don't need to be everything everything to everybody. Find your niche, give away free value, prove your worth, content, value, education, proactiveness. And then eventually when it's time to ask for the sale, they've already been sold. They've already been pre-qualified because they've already went through your system and they realize that you're the person they want to work with. So no matter what you're doing, whether you're running a mechanic shop to a dentist's office and anything in between, that's really, the key there is to provide that value so people do trust you with their money and with, whatever they're giving you as far as business goes. So obviously you got a lot of things going on, and we are all about systems. So what kind of systems do you have in place to run your service-based business? Is just like any other service-based business. It is online, but at the end of the day, you're still running a service-based business. So what do you have in place as far as systems go to help you make that happen?
Well, one of my favorite systems is Acuity Scheduling. That handles payment, that handles my appointments. I can make all different kinds of appointments. I can create all of my intake forms. So I have all of the information I need. It keeps a database of my client list, so I can go back and find all of the appointments and any notes that I put into the system for any person that I've ever dealt with that's made an appointment with me. I love Acuity. I cannot give it a higher rating. And I wish everybody who I ever had to make an appointment with would be on Acuity.
Sorry about that.
I know, it's okay. It's okay. You know what though? If you have a system that works, then whatever, that's fine. But most people don't have systems that work.
That's the key.
So
yeah.
Even when they get a scheduling thing, they just don't understand how to make the system work. So it's like the scheduler alone is not the system. It's just a tool. And so that's why I love Acuity, because it really is a very robust system. And it's not like you have to put a whole bunch of stuff together. It's all there. So that's one. I also, Google Docs, I really use the sheets a lot for when I want to, for a lot of the things I do, I use spreadsheets because I like colors. So I'll have different blocks turn different colors to show me at a glance what needs to be done, what has been done, stuff like that. And speaking of which, Process Street, I really like Process Street. That is a process management system. where you can actually bring other people into different checklists. It's got a lot of different functionality. So yeah, Process Street, Google Docs, and Acuity are probably my top 3 tools that I use.
Awesome. And definitely recommend those as well. I don't use Acuity. I use Schedule Once and I use Calendly. But the idea is the same. If you are sending emails back and forth or phone calls or text messages to schedule anything with anybody, you're wasting time and energy and probably frustration. So all they do is you link it up to your calendar. It shows your availability to whoever wants to schedule anything with you. If you're looking to interview employees, you can send them your calendar. They can schedule an interview. If you're looking to schedule clients, you send them your calendar. They schedule it, and you don't have to do anything. And they also have a payment feature in there. They have forms in there. It's a beautiful thing, and it saves you a lot of time and money and keeps the frustration to a minimum. So
on the other side too,
yes,
right? Because I think a lot of times people don't think about that. They're like, oh, okay, what works for me? But they're forgetting about the ease of use for the other person. And some people have calendars they'll send me, and then I have to pick a time, and then I have to wait for them to approve it. Well, dude, if I'm waiting for you to approve it, I'm not holding it in my calendar, right? So then by the time you come back and approve it, I may not have that time anymore. And then I'll make an appointment, and then I get a message saying, okay, now go to this form and fill out this stuff, or, oh, send me your Skype and send me it's like, can't you just, so, and again, I don't know how these Calendly and Schedule Once can be used, but I know, for example, the way I have my Acuity set up, you can't make the booking until you give me everything I need. Yep. And then once you give me everything I need, you make the appointment based on the parameters that I've set. So just because I have an opening in my calendar at a certain time doesn't mean I'm allowing appointments then, but I have set parameters. So then you make an appointment, and as soon as you do, you get an automated message from me saying, great, thanks for making this appointment. Here's what you need to know. And I have probably made at least 200 appointments in this way. And maybe 3 people in 200 have come back to me and asked a question that was already answered in the email. They just didn't read, I mean, it's like, so it's good. And it empowers them too, which I like, because I tell, like, and you've been my guest, this. So it's like, if you cannot attend, here, reschedule by clicking this, or cancel by clicking this. And you tell us
that, I think you told me that a minimum of 3 to 5 times, which is great.
3, because I send a confirmation email when somebody makes the appointment. I send a reminder email the day before, because you'd be surprised how many people, and if it's far out, I'll do one a week before too. Because sometimes people book out months in advance. So it's a week before, a day before, and then an hour before. So that you don't have to go searching for those, oh, where was that? Oh, it's like, no, the link is right there.
Yeah. So that, and really you need to have a system in place for everything to make your life easier. And this system can save you. It's not just scheduling stuff, like you said, it's forms, and it makes it easier for the other party. So when you're building a business, put yourself in the other party's shoes and say, do they want to go through all that? No. So be proactive, build something, take the time to set it up now, and then you can have 200 bookings and never have to do anything to get them scheduled. So very good takeaways there. So what are you got these things going now, and clearly you're picking up momentum. You've got your project, you're almost done with it. What are your future plans once this launches? What is the next step?
This is it.
I'm
really, it's like, I have felt since I started the Business Building Rockstar brand and I started my, online thing, I felt like I was getting closer and closer to it, but I didn't know what it was. And I didn't know if it would ever come, but I just was trying to enjoy what I was doing and provide value to the people who were following me. And it was all good. It's been good. And at the point where, because like I said, I started writing the book and I made the program, but I didn't want to do bookings because I was still playing a bit small, thinking there's already people doing it. Who am I? And so while we know up here, that there's plenty of business to go around. I just wasn't, I wasn't living that. I was like, okay, well, people will pay me for the education, but who am I to, do the bookings? I'm new or whatever. And so I wasn't doing that, and I didn't want to step on toes. And so that fear kept me stuck a little bit. And then once I had people coming to me, and I had people coming to me asking me to do it, but it was kind of like, and I was working on the summit, I was working on different things. So it was never a good time. And then when one of my guests, who I was trying to introduce to others to help him grow his business, because I just love his business so much, he's like, well, can you just do this for me? And I had to take a look, because at first I said, no, but I can introduce you to these people. And he's like, no, that's okay. I like you. And if you could do it, great. But otherwise, no. And it was hearing that like stopped me from passing on it. And I said, let me sleep on it and I'll give you a quote tomorrow. So I was like, I can. And I thought, well, why can't I do that? I mean, if I'm going to build a website, or if I'm going to give somebody strategy coaching or whatever I'm doing, I could just spend that time finding podcasts for him. So what would be the difference? And so I made him a quote. And as I was working through that, I thought, well, if I'm going to do this for him, this is something I'm going to offer. I have to. And of course, I can't do anything half-butted. I have to go all the way. So I was like, oh yeah, I'm definitely offering this to more people, because this is a lot of work for me, but it's work I love. So what if I could do this all the time? And of course, then I had sent out an email to people just on my contacts from my Acuity, just people that I've had appointments with, and that are podcasters and guests of mine. And I said, hey, this may come as a surprise, or it may not. It came as a surprise to me, but it seems like people thought I should be doing this all along. But I'm going to be offering this service, this VIP service. And so if you know of anybody that it could be helpful for, I'd love an introduction. I got so many emails from that. And this is why the podcast is like stalled a bit, because I didn't take enough time off to knock it out. And so I've had to prioritize when I have people coming to me and saying, take my money. And I'm like, whoa, I'm not ready. Hold on. It's like, that's just crazy talk. So I've had to prioritize the people who want to be my clients and get them sorted. And unfortunately, that's made me have to not have the podcast and the school done as I wished, but it is getting done. I'm chipping away little by little, and it will be done. So yeah, that's where I'm at.
Very cool. So how are you going to leverage this as being it to kind of take you to your ideal view of freedom? And, how are you making sure that happens?
I keep getting invited to speak on stages about it. So that's been kind of wild. Next month, I'm going to 2 live events in other places in the US. And I just got back from PodFest in Orlando, where I spoke about it. And I'm going out to San Diego also in September. And so I'm getting a lot of invites to speak on stages. I'm getting a lot of invites to come on podcasts to talk about this, getting a lot of invites to do summits, to do private webinars for people's communities. So yeah, I mean, and as I grow my business, then I can hire more people to work my system, because again, that's systems. It allows you to have other people do pieces of it for you. So yeah, that's
awesome. So that's amazing. And it's really proof and kind of inspiration to don't stop until you get to really where you want to go, and you're doing something you love every day, because that's when you really achieve that ultimate freedom. You get to speak about something you're passionate about. Clearly you're passionate about this, and you found it. And encourage everybody else out there, until you find it, you only got one life. So you might as well continue to pursue that until you make it, and then enjoy it and enjoy that freedom. So,
and if this isn't it tomorrow, I'll find a new it. Yeah. But for now, it's it. For now, like I see my business growing, and I see more of an agency model where I'm still high touch working with my VIP clients, but that the rest of the business pretty much runs itself through automations and through team members, and that I just really show up for the coaching and for my for my high level clients.
Awesome. So anybody out there building a business, I mean, you're seeing it from the ground level right here. Nicole's perfecting all the systems, all the processes, but she has that bigger picture of once I get to that point, I can delegate, I can hire staff, and I've already proved the systems and process that work. So Nicole, this has been great, and it's been very inspirational, and really appreciate you coming on, being our first guest. But as you know, all good things do come to an end. So we are all about freedom on the show, so we don't want to take up too much of your time. I'm sure your clients are waiting for you to get back to them. And our listeners, we don't want to take up too much of their time. But before we sign off, it is time for our rapid recommendations, where we're going to give you 6 different topics on things related to systems, automation, and freedom. And you're going to give us one recommendation that you recommend our listeners go and check out today. So what is one book that you recommend? And it is Stand Out
by Dorie Clark.
There you go. So if you're not watching video, it is Stand Out by Dorie Clark right there prominently on her desk.
I forgot that we're not, people are listening. Yeah, Stand Out, How to Find Your Breakthrough Idea and Build a Following Around It by Dorie Clark.
There you go. What about one quote?
Do not go where the path may lead. Go instead where there is no path, and leave a trail by Ralph Waldo Emerson.
Awesome. What about one tool? I'm going to guess Acuity, but what about one tool?
Yeah, well, we've already said Acuity, so I'll use Zoom. That's what we're using now, and that's my virtual office.
Zoom is great, and it's free. If you want to get started, zoom.us, we'll link it up. It's a great way to build a virtual office, communicate with clients, and talk to your staff no matter where they're at. What about one podcast that we should listen to?
You know, I was just on the Maximize Your Strengths podcast with Alyssa Dara Nelson, and it was really cool because she actually has her guests take a Strengths Finder test, and then she does the analysis during the interview, which was
wow.
It was really, yeah. And Pat Flynn was on there, and he had such an experience with her that he is like, oh yeah, I'm recommending this to everybody. And I had just, it was last week, I had that experience as well. And so definitely Maximize Your Strengths with Alyssa Dara Nelson.
Cool. We'll definitely get that linked up. What about one community that you like to hang out in, paid or free, that you recommend?
Oh my gosh, a community that I like to hang out in, paid or free, that I recommend.
Unless you don't hang out anywhere.
I'm drawing a blank. You mean like physically or online?
No, like physically, online, either way.
We've
stumped the guest.
We've
expert.
Stumped Nicole. So I mean, there's lots of Facebook groups. I don't hang out very long. And I don't necessarily have groups. I mean, there are groups that I am involved with, but they're periods of time. What I really love is going to places where there are lots of different people who I have met from lots of different spaces to join together. So for example, Podfest was fun. I wish I was over the weekend in San Diego for
traffic and conversions.
Oh my gosh. Yes. I'm so jealous that I wasn't there. Because I think it's really just the bringing together of people who I enjoy and respect and have fun with. But no, I don't have a specific group or community.
That's okay. I think the key takeaway is to just get out there and network. And as entrepreneurs, as business owners, sometimes you feel like you're on an island all by yourself in a little bubble. So get out there and network with other people that are doing the same thing as you do. The rising tide will raise all ships. So what is one parting piece of advice for any business owner out there who is stuck, burned out, or just trying to get over the hump?
Stop looking at what other people's opinions are of your situation and stop trying to qualify it, and just go within and ask yourself, what do I really want? And once you know what you really want, you can chip away at it. You don't have to, climb Everest in a day. You can't. It's just not going to work. But you can go a little bit and then a little bit and a little bit. And when you know where you want to go, it's much easier to create those milestone goals, achieve them, and then get to the next one.
Awesome. Nicole Holland, from correctional officer to marketing guru to now podcast expert. Thank you so much for taking time out of your day to impart some of your knowledge, wisdom, and enthusiasm to our community. Hopefully this helps everyone out there get one step closer to achieving that ultimate freedom in their business and in life. But before we sign off, where can our listeners go to keep in touch with you?
Definitely. Thank you, first of all, Paul, for having me. Thank you to your listeners for sticking with us. I hope you got lots of value. If you did, you can go to interviewsthatconvert.com/BOFFS for Business Owners Freedom Formula Show. So interviewsthatconvert.com/BOFFS. And yeah, there'll be links to my podcasts there. And, if you want to also, I've got like a little PDF lead magnet. So you can grab that. It's about how to get a yes from practically any host. But then again, of course, in the new podcast, I go deep into it. So I'll just link all of that up there.
Cool. So we will definitely put that in the show notes as well in case you are busy and don't have a place to type or write. interviewsthatconvert.com/BOFFS. And if you're on Twitter, Nick's the name, Nicz the name, or Facebook, Let Nicole Help. So that is it with Nicole Holland, our first ever guest, first of many, and we'll probably check back in with you once we get to around episode 100 to see where you're at that time, if this is still it or if you're doing something else. So stay tuned for next week's episode as we dive into another fantastic interview with Mary Catherine Johnson from Parent Entrepreneur Power. And if you like what you're hearing, we'd always appreciate a friendly review, subscribe, and share it with your friends. Until next time, don't forget to join our free Facebook group, bizfreedomformula.com, where we can continue the conversation with like-minded entrepreneurs just like you who are putting the plans in place to work less, make more while increasing the value of their business and achieving ultimate freedom. Keep rocking, trust the process, and talk to you soon. Adios.